Let's go ahead and get started. We are really excited to be here. Happy to be here. Thanks for joining. We are TestFit. This webinar is all about parking inside of the software. We are getting back to our roots here today, which is kind of exciting. I'll explain a little bit about what that means in a second. My name is Charlie Cooper. I'm joined by Matt Kendall and Ben Tremblay. And for the last couple of months, we, among others on the team, have been super hyper focused on our legacy parking configurator and test fit, trying to figure out adding new features, new use cases, and we've kind of reorganized the company in a way where we have a go-to-market person like myself who sells the software, and then a product owner who prioritizes new features and what needs to get built. That's Matt Kendall. And then really the genius behind all of it is Ben Tremblay, who's the one who actually builds this stuff. So we have some firepower on the webinar. We're excited to show you what's new. We really appreciate you attending today. I mean, everyone's kind of sick of the whole corporate AI webinar. I feel like it's everywhere we look. It's inescapable these days, whether it's large language models, generative AI, machine learning, et cetera. Everyone's got an opinion on what it is, what it can do. Some companies are leveraging it to great success. Other people are super threatened by it. And what is AI? What can it do? It's very polarizing today, right? So there are some good things and some bad things that AI does. I mean, a couple of years ago, this feature just showed up in my inbox, and I use it every single day. The ability to predict an email response from a line of text and send it automatically. That's pretty cool. Chatbots, ubiquitous. We all use them on our website to triage different customer requirements and tasks, and we all use less manpower in order to do this. That's super simple and great as well. This call recording, right? Everything is recorded today. You record us, we record you, we create these beautiful transcripts. What do we do with these transcripts? At TestFit, we've been able to organize transcripts into different market segments or building typologies and feed them into ChatGPT in order to get sort of clarity on priorities and roadmap. Pretty cool. So those are some of the simple ways that we're leveraging AI. And then there's the weird stuff that we're seeing, right? This was one of the first things that came in, the Tom Cruise deep fake. It wasn't malicious per se, but I think it was a little bit scary on how easy it is to duplicate a celebrity's likeness and make them do weird stuff. We've seen recently some fake receipts, so fake receipt gate that's giving finance companies some headaches, and retailers are getting really scared about return fraud being prevalent. And then I don't know if you've been on LinkedIn in any time in the last couple of days, but this is the trend. You're not cool these days unless you create, for some reason, a fake action figure of yourself and post it on LinkedIn. I don't know what the business application is for this, but I think it's super cool. So if you're in business, if you're on the webinar today, you're obviously part of the societal debate about AI. You're probably in the AEC industry. And whether you're investing in, designing, or building different projects, and you're thinking about ways that you can leverage and incorporate AI, we want to encourage you to perhaps think about using AI to help lay out and count parking stalls, right? Why? Parking drives a lot of the layout and the output of a site in general. It's inherently a math problem that is much better suited for a piece of software than a human. Parking stalls take up a lot of space on a site itself, but they don't generate big profits. And of course, if you're doing parking or anything else, you're probably drawing these by hand with 2D tools, manually counting those parking stalls. And then of course, a customer or client needs a change and you have to redo the whole thing. This is the only slide that you will see in the presentation today, not created by AI. This is a picture of our co-founders. We have Clifton Harness on the left, the visionary, and then Ryan Grieg on the right, who's the technical software engineering genius. And I tell the story every single day to prospective customers when they ask, how did Tesla get started? It's very simple. Clifton is a trained architect, was working for a developer, and got sick of counting parking stalls. So parking is definitely in our DNA. It's part of who we are. Ryan Grieg was developing video games at the time. So when you see TestFit today, take a look at that sort of marriage between an acute problem, Clifton's industry expertise married with Ryan Greig's, aesthetics and quick transactions and software. If you've been following TestFit the last couple of years, we do a lot more than just parking, right? A year and a half ago, we developed a configurator or building typology for data centers. That's become our largest growing revenue driver in the business, I would say. We added a very simple massing tool, subdivisions, industrial. We've always been really strong with multifamily, whether it's high density or low density. But if you go all the way back to 2016, we started with parking. And myself, Ben, Matt, it's been fun as TestFit has evolved and we've learned how to market, design and develop and sell the product. We're taking those learnings and we're going back to the starting point in regards to parking to try to figure out, adding new features that we've always known existed, trying to find new use cases, et cetera. And that's been really fun. So we're going to start today with a game or a contest. And we've all a jar, right? Now, there's a couple ways that you can do this. You could just go off of a hunch or a feel. Maybe you're a jelly bean expert, right? And that knows the sizes of each jelly bean and can figure it out. Maybe you manufacture jars and you know the width and the volume of this jar. So we're going to do this, but we're going to do this with a parking lot, naturally. So I'm going to switch screens here and I'm going to share my TestFit. We do have a prize for this. The winner of this contest is going to be sent some TestFit swag. TestFit actually has some really cool swag. So everyone stay focused here. We're not doing Price is Right rules. It's the closest you can go over. So what I have here is a 13.5-acre site with some basic parking parameters for stall width, depth, etc. I'm going to give you all 15 seconds, rapid fire. Everyone please guess how many parking stalls are on this site. Are we seeing some results come in? Awesome. Okay, so we're going to figure out who the winner was. I will show you that the actual total for this is 1,409 stalls. Right. So I'm not sure how you figure it. Maybe you have some legacy knowledge about, parking stalls and the size, et cetera. Maybe you're doing some math. Let's do another option. Let's say that we have 1,409 stalls. I'm going to hide the tabulation again, but your client needs some sort of change and wants to look at a retail pad. How many stalls now? This is something that happens in the industry all the time. This is design changes. How many stalls are in the site if I turn on, let's say, FEMA flood zones? How about now? So I'm not going to keep beating a dead horse. I guess what I'm trying to get across is obvious here is that it's really difficult to count parking stalls. We might as well use AI to be able to do that for us, right? So thanks for that. Do we have someone talking here? I heard some feedback. No? Okay. Cool. What I want to do now is I'm going to give you kind of a brief overview of how TestFit works, and then I'm going to hand it over to Matt to do some more complex stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the screen down and I'm just going to draw a blank site. So I know there are probably some users on the call and maybe some people that are new to TestFit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to explain on a super high level what our parking algorithm is. So here we have TestFit. I'm going to turn on my tabulation. I have created a random 5.64 acre site, and I can, of course, change the size of it. And I put in a preset that's called surface parking. Okay, so what you're seeing in TestFit is my design space in the middle, my editing parameters for the parking on the left, and then all of my tabulation and my counting here on the bottom. And so as you're seeing the demo today, everything is live inside of TestFit as I make changes. So I'm making an obvious change to the boundary. I can come in here and manipulate the setback. As I'm making these changes, you're going to see that the parking is being redrawn and the stalls on the bottom are automatically updated. How many stalls depends on a couple of things. It's the novel geometry of the site, plus that 10-foot setback all the way around. And then, of course, the parameters for the parking. Stall width, stall depth coming in at 9 by 18 feet, pretty standard. drive aisle with 24 feet, et cetera, right? So the simplest explanation that I can give for test fit as it pertains to parking is we generate a site plan instantly using algorithms, and then we pull levers and switches to get it to reflect the outcomes that we need. And as we're doing all of this live inside of test fit, we're getting the accurate stall counts on the bottom. Very, very simple stuff here with the surface. We can add some complexity to the site as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a space. And we have a bunch of preset spaces in TestFit. You can create your own. We're not getting into corridor widths or unit dimensions at this point. We're just putting in a mass, right? And this mass has some metadata in regards to it, right? So it's coming in at the first level. It's 1 level tall. Of course, I can change that. We have a couple of bits of metadata for this mass in regards to efficiency, load factor, stalls per thousand. As I'm adjusting these parameters here, you're going to see all the information on the bottom adjust as well. So this is just a basic overview of how the test fit parking works, is that we create a site, we put in a preset. That preset has specific parameters that define the shape, the dimensions of the parking. And then as we make changes here, we are getting accurate totals here on the site. Matt, anything I forgot about this, or would you like to
No,
take it
this is
over?
good. Can you actually place that? Can you place that back in the middle? Yeah, just like that. Can y'all hear me correct? Okay, it's cool. There we go. I
Uh,
can hear myself now. Um, yeah, so there's some actually cool stuff going on right here. And Ben can talk about this for days probably because he spent months on this. But so if you actually take a look at what's happening, I'm trying to pull up my pen. You're gonna notice there's these kind of connections too. So this new kind of addition that we added to our parking, and you're gonna know some areas in like this one over here on the right, we can see that this connection isn't made over here. So something that's really nice that our parking's now doing, and that's fine, Charlie, we can leave it there. It'd be like a good piece. So what it's kind of doing now is you can see we've created like this sub-regions of parking around an area, but we're still keeping that larger kind of circulation path happening on that outside. So you get these kind of nice kind of drop-off almost-esque areas. Besides right here, that's a connection that you can change. These are all parameters that you can adjust. We call these our kind of connections between those parking zones. So if we wanted to, we can turn those off, but it is kind of nice how you're starting to get these kind of subtle, smaller, kind of like lower trafficked areas that larger kind of ring road place on that outside. I think that's another nice big improvement that we have from our parking algorithm that Ben had worked on for such a while.
Awesome. Yeah, and before we kind of hand it over to you, Matt, and I think Ben, since we have you on the call, I mean, you were kind of the first one after, Clifton and Ryan first came up with this parking algorithm to do, the research on the industry and what was available at the time. Like, how did you even start to think about developing parking and what did you learn kind of early on?
Uh, well, when I started, I like the first thing I did was try to figure out what other people were doing because there's lots of other really smart people, working on these kinds of things too. But um, actually, what I found is anyone working on this, or at least with any kind of public research or write-ups, whatever, either approach the problem strictly from looking at the circulation and not really worrying about how to use it, or they looked at it as having already kind of fixed circulation and what to do given that. So I think we're actually really doing something novel, which makes it hard, but also really rewarding or exciting to work on. And with that said, how did I do it? There's a lot of iteration. There's definitely some things that didn't work initially, right? But we're as we iterate on it, we get better and better and better. I don't really have a better answer other than that. It's just sort of you try to come up with an idea that will work, or give you good solves, right? And you build it, and then either it does work or it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't work, but we're definitely getting
Awesome.
there.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Matt Kendall, I'm gonna hand it over to you now.
All right, so I'm just going to show some other kind of configurators inside of TestFit where we use parking. We have what we were looking at with Charlie over here, and I'll kind of build on to some of the other pieces that we have. Oh, let me move my window. Awesome. Okay, so as Charlie was mentioning, we have surface parking. We're seeing it resolve around there. As mentioned over here on that left, everything that we're seeing over here is a parameter. So your stall dimensions are in there. If you see, we have a couple of different colored areas in here as well. We have ADA stalls, we have van ADAs, and we have some compact stalls as well. All of these are parameters that you can change, just like the standard stalls. You can also set if you wanted to be put as a percentage. Right now we have compacts as 10%, or if you wanted to, we have this kind of nice table. You can have that follow or have it follow that one to place that parking for you as needed. So as he was showing, as these adjust the number of stalls that are placed, sorry, the number of like the custom stalls that are placed are also adjusting as well. Moving over to this site. So what we're going to do is I'm in generative design right now, and I'm going to turn on our high density solver. So we're seeing it kind of go through all of these options right here just to kind of see how this is solving. But for this one, we're actually going to go back to our wrap, which was one of our kind of first parking features that we had. So we'll go down to this wrap. We can take a look at this in 3D. So what's actually happening on here? So we'll take a look at the garage, kind of see how this is functioning. We can see within the garage, we do have ramp placement that's happening. Because this garage is so short, it's having some trouble placing one singular ramp. So you can see these ramps are all being moved around. We also have an access in here that we can drag and move around. Wherever that access moves, we can see where we're removing streets to create that connection over there. But another nice important thing is, so let's say we're creating our building and we need to input our stall requirement for these. Right now, we just have a generic, 1.5 per each. But as this starts to increase, we're going to see that our parking garage itself is growing to meet that demand. So depending on what your stall count is that you need for this, and I'll start filling these in, that demand on here, we can see the total of it. And as that grows, that's going to be reflected in the size of the garage that's showing up on here. We do give you options to move this garage around as you want. So I can click and I can drag this to another location. So we're going to solve it somewhere for you. You can see if I cross over the lines, it doesn't like that because we're technically moving outside. But you can see you have quick control of where to place this. I can put this in here, in this corner. I can move my stall to the front after I move my, there we go, after I move my ramp. But we can see you have options to either hide that parking from the outside, like what we're doing with this wrap. You can expose it if you want to by just dragging that up on that edge, but just showing that you can kind of customize that just a bit over there. The next piece that I want to show in terms of parking is we're going to show our over here. And this is going to be our garden solver. Garden's going to be our one with our prototypical buildings, and it's also trying to hit a mix like we're looking at with the other one. And let me turn on some green spaces real quick. There we go. We're going to fill these gaps that we have with this. So with parking as well, we're going to notice that we're seeing a couple of these gaps show up in here. That is also another parameter that we have. Lots of times when you're working on these sites, you're required by zoning or whoever it is to place it could be a landscape buffer every certain number of stalls. So we have that set inside of here. So I've changed my max run to 20 stalls. So now what TestFit's doing is it's running 20 stalls and it's placing a landscape buffer over there, or just a gap. You don't have to landscape it. We can actually have a toggle to undo that one. So just to show, you can go in there, you're making those changes, you're setting those requirements that come in from the city, whatever it may be. And we're kind of seeing how that's updating. This is also doing something very similar to what the wrap one was doing. I have a parking requirement for my site. If I start to lower this, notice that we have a couple extra rows of parking outside of this ring road and this one going down the middle. If I just lower my parking down, notice how there's no other roads being placed other than these kind of outside larger circulation spines. As I start to increase this, there's going to be more and more parking until it just tells me that I need to park the entire site. So it is going to be kind of updating to the demand that it's kind of requesting. On top of that one, let's say we have an idea of how we want to park it, or maybe we want to fine tune it a bit. There is a way to go in and start to manually adjust this. We call this our manual mode. Well, notice as I start to draw these things, the buildings themselves are reflecting the update to that parking, and they're changing as necessary. So if there's enough room, I'll draw another kind of area down here lower. We're seeing that the buildings are still showing up, but we're also getting that parking, and we're seeing that kind of max stall length show up on there as well. Go over to Gerben. So that's kind of our we'll get into 3D so we can take a look at all this. So that's going to be our garden one. Gerben, we have another one. It's a similar kind of lower density style development. We'll see what that looks like as well. Also kind of a much larger site. So you can see down here, we're looking at 13 acres for this larger site. It's again, placing all these buildings. We have parameters set in here for kind of size of courtyard versus size of the building. So you can see some of these are open and some of them are closed or just straight segments. But again, this is doing kind of similar things that we're looking at with all of them. That parking demand is such a big factor into how these sites work that we're solving that for you. And then we're giving you the option to go in and adjust that manually afterwards. So you can see as I start to remove rows of parking, it's kind of opening it up for it to be a larger building or a larger mass. And then you have options over here on the left to kind of cycle between different ones. At this point, you kind of taken over for the parking demand meeting it, but still we're kind of giving you that first solve that is hitting the parking requirements shown down here on the bottom. So we're required 725. We're a bit over parked for this one, but not a problem. We can see I removed that road, quickly removed that road. It updated the massing. We got additional units and we're still within the parking requirements over here. So just kind of showing off some of those other features that we have within some of those other configurators. This last one that I want to show over here, so we're going to move up in scale quite a bit. We're going to look at our industrial solver. Big, large, cross-loaded building. So within this as well, very similar to the other things that we've been looking at. This not only has parking that we have along the edges, this is kind of more for kind of standard vehicular car parking. So we're seeing that where that's located. The office has a demand for parking on here, so I can increase this up or down as needed. It'll place the parking. On top of that one, we also have dock doors. So if you're familiar with industrial, lots of times you'll have parking kind of opposite of that dock door, and there's going to be some kind of requirement that we have for that. And again, this is another parameter that we have inside of test fit. So if I lower my parking required, we're seeing that kind of shrink. I could say it's 0. It's going to disappear. And now the building's actually grown because it doesn't allocate that space left over for that parking on those edges. As this is increasing, you can see, just like all the other ones, we're adding more parking to this building just until it can't reach anymore. And now we have parking kind of for both of these setups over here. One thing that I started out with here that I haven't shown yet is we have this larger road network that I use to create these plans. So the road network itself is what's being used right now to create the outlines of the site. Let me turn off our background real quick. And that road network itself can be customized as well. So what we're looking at here, and I'll select our roads, is I've just drawn this kind of basic alley that we have over here. What our roads tool allows us to do, as you can see, it has parking in it. So we can actually customize these sections. I can left click inside. I could change my parking stalls. Maybe I don't want these ones. We'll turn that to head ends on both. So you can see, you can go in, you can customize them. You can change the stall angles, sizes, and depths. These are all parameters that are there for you to use. And I'll go back to those nice parallels. So we can see that this avenue over here has parking. Once I've already drawn all of this road network, I can actually right click, change this type, and we'll go to avenue. And if you notice, as I did that, it's taken up more space within that street section. And and all of these sites have kind of adjusted to hit that. And I'll do Control Z. We can see it's gone back. Notice the kind of edge the line where all these are. And then I go back forward. They've all pushed back. One, resolving the requirements they have, the tabs that they have for the units, and all of the kind of data that's involved with all of that on there. Do we have any questions coming in so far? Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything as we're kind of talking along.
We do, Kendall.
Yeah, go for
from
it.
Jackson Smith. Yeah. How do you solve for easements and right of ways, especially considering that some easements allow for roadways, but no vertical construction on top?
Ooh, great comment. Okay, so we do have easements. So what I'll say is let's go here and add an easement. We have a few ways of drawing it. One's a standard poly tool, one's a rectangle, and one's a draw path offset. So right now it's going to work kind of just as what we're seeing. I can draw what that path is. As I finish that, I can set what the width of that easement is going to be. And right now what it does is it actually just removes everything. So it's essentially creating a no build zone. That is part of feedback that we've heard is the ability to add additional toggles to easements. One to allow roads or to allow, smaller buildings if necessary. But that is feedback that we've heard. Right now, we can't create the connection between these because it is blocking it out. But there's ways that we can always go about this. We do have the manual mode as well for all these other elements. So if I were to click and I draw, let's say this connection over, I've technically baked in the outline of that easements that's, excuse me, I've baked in the outline of the easements that's there. And if I were to remove that, we can still see it's not technically placing parking where that is, but that drive connecting in there over. So we don't do it automatically. There's ways to manually set it up, but it is part of the kind of feedback that we've had with easements of ways to improve it to either have toggles to allow buildings or roads or none at all. But great question though.
Really good question. Yeah. There's a couple more coming in and I'll ask a couple. So is this compatible or is exportable to Revit? The short answer is yes, we have a free add-in to Revit. It's a plugin that runs natively in the ribbon of Revit. Bunch of our customers are spending a couple minutes inside of TestFit, creating geometry, and then exporting directly to Revit to continue on. And then another interesting question here was, does this conform to contours? I'll let you take that one, Kevin.
Oh, it does. I actually have those turned off right now. And I'm not in the most, there's a hilly area back behind us, but it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn on my cut and fill metrics. I had it toned down a bit, and we'll actually start to see how this looks. This is not the most curved area. So let's just draw a site up here and see if this has some more on here. Draw a site. Actually, we're going to use our define by parcels. I'm also going to go on this right side and turn on some of our data layers. You can see parcels have popped on because I've enabled define by parcels. I'll toggle zone. No, we won't do zoning. We'll do elevations for now. We're not in any flood zones. Oh yeah, we're seeing way more topo over here. So I can actually just click on here. I've defined by parcels. And let's say I want to put, I'll put like a low density development on here. So some townhomes. So now that the townhomes have been placed on here, we're going to give it a second. We're going to pan into 3D. And now we're going to see that it's actually reacting to that street that we have. So it's doing a few things. I think I'm on the latest one. We actually have a new update coming out. That's going to be, this one's looking great, but it has some new features to it. So this is responding to topo. We can see it kind of stepping down. If I go back into 2D, what we can actually see is once I select inside of that site, we give you spot grades for one where it's connecting to the outside. And we can see where all of these intersections are and how that's reacting with the roads itself. So we're creating a slope from intersection to intersection, and all of these are all editable as well. So for some reason, if I wanted to bring this to, let's say 4350, it's going to be way up for on purpose. So now I've raised up this side and we can see that they've all kind of reacted to that. And this outside area, we can see that large kind of piece that it made. This is things they can reset these if you want to. So I've set that back to normal and it's all looking kind of just as what you would expect on here. It is placing the townhomes off of that road with a certain kind of slope in mind to place that. So it can place it within a reasonable distance of that road, up or down a certain percentage. So yeah, it is going to be responding to topo. On top of that, we can give you those cut and fill analysis down here on the bottom. If you have other things on the site, this is kind of a slope site, but just to show a bit more since you asked the topo question, I'll add a pond to this site right now for fun. And what we can actually see is we're getting those topo changes down here on the bottom. We're seeing what those are. We're also seeing how much area is within that retention pond that we've created. But again, we're seeing all this happen instantly. So as I drag this pond around, let me make sure I can grab that pond. Oh, I can't drag it for some reason. Well, we can just kind of take a look at those lines. So as I move this, we're seeing all of those spot grades update instantly, and you pan into 3D and you're going to see that instant response as well for how those are moving. Hopefully I answered that. So yes, we do have topo. We are kind of accounting for that when we're laying out these buildings. And then you can see you're kind of getting the instant feedback when you're adjusting these to the topo and how it's citing those and placing the finished floor elevations for everything. Cool.
Awesome, Kevin.
What other questions were coming up?
Couple more questions. One is in regards to underground parking. I'm sure you have prepared a basic demo for, yes, structured parking, as well as there's a question about movement required for access stalls and docks. So if you could get into maybe some other building typologies,
awesome,
like structured parking and industrial.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we'll take a look at the structured parking real quick. So I'm just going to do a high density podium tower. We can see what I'm going to do is I'm just going to adjust my setbacks, get me a little bit closer to those road section that we've created, because the roads that we already have sidewalks and whatnot. So we're just going to give ourselves a bit more room on here. So within the structured parking, it's just going to be another parameter that we have. If I want to, I can select that garage level. Right now it's starting on level 1. I move it down to basement. Now it's starting in the basement. Move it down again. Oh, clicked wrong button. And now it's completely in the basement. So yeah, there is an option to go and create basement parking. We're just saying how tall is that garage. Right now we're showing 2, 3, you can change those as what you want. And then that starting point for that as well. So yeah, we will have that. Another thing that we'll notice within the parking garage, as I didn't mention it too much, is we are kind of leaving a column buffer for you. So selecting that garage layer, I can go to where we have our columns. There we go. And so those are actually being placed, you can see a certain distance, and we're trying to kind of match those up along there. The columns right now, they don't coordinate with the stalls up above, but we are trying to coordinate some of these verticals moving down into that garage. So that's kind of our start of our coordination of those. And so let me go over here to the left and let's see where our spacing is, and I'll column buffer. I'll just do our column buffer off for now, just for fun. So you can see no spaces are being placed, or sorry, no gaps for the columns are being placed, but we're seeing these stairs start to kind of come down in there. And as these move around, so if I wanted to, select these and drag them around, we should see that start to reflect within that garage. And you can see that showing up down there for that garage as well. So yeah, we have that. I think another question came in about some other pieces of parking. So what I wanted to mention about industrial as well. So when we're doing an industrial solve, this actually works for any of the solves. But what I'm going to do is actually, we do have this little truck icon over here on this left. What this is you can actually see we're showing a big semi right here. I can click tab and I can cycle between different ones. We're using kind of just the basic standards. So we have our semi, we have a bus, and I think we have a fire truck, a smaller van, and then just a regular car on here. So there's a few options that we have. The way that it works is, one, we kind of click. So now I'm kind of backed up into this area, and we're kind of manually drawing it right now, what that's going to look like and how we're getting, how we're getting out of that site. So we can see I just kind of clicked that. I can finish it if I want. And now I can see that turning line. If I were to select it, I can kind of see how that looks. And also I can make adjustments to the angles and sharpness of how these are kind of turning. So right now it is kind of a manual condition to draw those, to draw our vehicle path. But you can see once you've drawn it, it stays there and you kind of get to see how that's working. If it's too tight, we can always adjust turn radius. We can adjust the path that it's taking, see if it fits. Again, this is all just kind of help check your work as you're going along. We're required to have, those turning radiuses for those trucks. Cool. Great questions. I see a couple more, Charlie. Was there anything else that you needed to read out for me for questions? Oh, you're muted.
We handled underground parking. We looked at industrial. Where is the topography coming from, the data?
Uh, I should know this answer off the top of my head.
Esri, I think it's coming from Esri, I believe.
It's Esri. Okay, cool, great. Yeah, because I know we've looked at a couple of them. Okay, good.
Yeah, we have a number of different data providers. Esri is one of them. Another
Mm-hmm.
interesting one for you, Kendall, which would be fun to see you do live, is what
Yeah.
about mixed use? This person is a land developer, sometimes combining fourplexes and duplexes with townhouses.
Oh, fun.
Can they
Okay.
build my
Yeah.
own template of asset typology? Yes.
Yeah, of course. So I think he said townhome with some mixed use stuff on there. So we'll give it a try. So what I'm going to do is there's a few ways we can go about this. If I just have a basic townhome solve like this, we can see it's just solving townhomes everywhere. There's a couple ways to go about it. I could, if we wanted to, we have this idea of what we call a region. So if I were to go in and start drawing, let's say I want to place something over here within the same site, this is still kind of part of the same piece. I'm going to put a big, large wrap for fun. So we can see within one site, I can start to mix these different typologies together. I can right click and create an offset, give myself some buffer between these areas over here. So if we wanted to place a wrap right up next to some townhomes, very easy to do. You can see we're still kind of putting in topo grades and elevations within there. But if we wanted to go a step farther, let's say we wanted to update, specific styles within this, we do have this other feature that it's called dependent fill. And what that actually means is, so let's say within this section right here, I want to put something else, not like what we've drawn over here, which is this kind of manually drawn kind of shape that I've placed. I can actually say I want to put something inside of this street block that we've just created, which is actually really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a fill region. Now, once I have a fill region active, I can highlight any one of these sections over here. You can see I'm hovering over and we're seeing what that is. So let's just do this one because we use that as an example. I can click inside of that. And then just for now, I'm going to put like an unparked building just to show something different. But it can switch between anything. We can put parcels on there. So now you can see I have parcels mixed with townhomes. I can put different kinds of townhomes if I want. I know they're all showing up as yellow right now, but that's just showing different townhomes. But yeah, you can essentially put whatever you'd like with inside of that hosted area. We'll do unparked just so it's pure building. And then we can kind of see what that looks like. And I'll just kind of draw an extra road. So maybe that's too big of an area we want. And we'll just cut that with that piece. So now we can see part of that's just taken up with parking. So depending on kind of the level of mixed use you're going for, we can either do it mixed use as in on a site that we're looking at right now. Someone that asked the podium question earlier, if we're doing, let's say, mixed use on this high density building, same thing with anything else we're looking at. I'm going in, I'm adding a space. I'm going to move this space where I want it. So maybe this is where I want this today. I'll change that space over to retail. Now that it's retail, I have a load factor that's showing up for this. So that retail on that site is going to need about 28 stalls. And that's all tabulating over here within this site itself. So yeah, there's a few ways to go about it. You can do mixed use kind of vertically if we're looking at a building. If you wanted to go in and start to separate these different buildings into different styles of units, that's an option. We can change units at height. So if you're looking at senior living or student housing or penthouses or amenity levels with changes, there's options to go in and kind of change the uses or the units used on each of those sections. So we can do some mixed use is basically the TLDR of that. Charlie, was there anything else to that question? Just want to make sure I covered all of that.
I think that was good, and we can follow
Okay.
up with answers to these questions. Yeah. Do you have more to show, Matt, or?
Actually, no, that's good for me. Actually, I just opened up the questions. Now I can see them. I saw one thing about the Revit modification. So once it's imported into Revit, it doesn't it's trying to answer this in the correct way. You're going to be basically importing in what it looks like at that time. So if you wanted to make changes, you would just kind of import the updated file. It's not going to be like a live link where, let's say I come in here and I delete this and then it shows up deleted with inside of Revit right now. We are importing in as lines. You can apply things to those lines being, wall types, the types of slabs or floors that you're using from those. All those are things that you can select when you import it into Revit, but it's not going to be kind of a live working relationship back and forth. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, Clifton. It's very limited. I didn't want to say much into it, the bidirectional piece of it. There's some things that we can go in and out, but it's not going to be like a perfect live link at first. In ArchiCAD, we can export as a DXF file. So if you want to use that, kind of it's like it's like a basic CAD format. That is a way that you can kind of take this out of here into, ArchiCAD or AutoCAD or all those kind of things. And same thing, it'll come in with layers. We'll have lines for building profiles, corridors, the streets and the parking. All of that's going to come in on kind of like nice layer in it, like in individual layers that you can then start to control. Well, that's all I have, Charlie. If there's any more questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's a Thursday before a long weekend for us, so we're happy to let class out a little early, right? I mean, I think Amazon started with selling books, right? We started with automating parking, and you can see all the nice stuff that we have developed as a result of that. So we'll be following up with everybody who attended the webinar. We would love to get you on a call to look at one of your sites specifically. It's one thing to see an expert clicking and showing all these features, but where the rubber meets the road is actually how does TestFit work with your parameters on your specific sites, et cetera. So yeah, with that, I think we really appreciate everybody attending today. We'll follow up and hopefully we'll see you on a call soon.
Thank you all. Have a good one.